absolutely thrilled this evening to have Susan Wood join us at the church. Susan is someone that I met was it a summer ago? Yeah, a couple of months ago. I was standing at the front desk and we started talking, and her friend Marjorie was there. And we began talking about the most interesting things in like 1 nanosecond. And I thought, I have to get this woman to talk to everybody here because her stories are amazing and her experiences are unmatched practically. And I don't want to say too much now because we're going to see a wealth of beautiful photographs. Her photography is just amazing and I think not well enough heralded in my personal opinion, but I do. And I'm very glad that you're here to enjoy them with us. And we'll be talking during the slide talk, and then we'd love to have a question and answer with you all. So save your questions and remember what they are as we go through things. So would you like, okay. That's, you have to use your mic too. No, you just turned it off. Do it again. That's good.
Can you hear me? Oh, I can hear me. Okay. That was Peter Fonda and Dennis Hopper at the first shooting of Easy Rider, and we were in the cemetery in New Orleans. And that was a very telling photograph. But we'll get back to it.
How?
Well, there's so many to see. You know, why don't we just run through a lot? You can get a sense of the way I photograph, and then we can talk about the individuals that you want me to talk about.
That was Jean
That's John
Matusimi
Wayne.
Ash and Arthur Ashe just before John Wayne. One of the things
Red
that...
buttons. That's,
Oh my God. Can you explain
and this made a better story than all the rest of the ones I shot on that movie set where I was in Africa for 6 months. It was with Howard Hawks and John Wayne, and it was called Hatari. And that was our wrangler who took, that was her own one-legged dog, and that was a cheetah that she was getting more and more civilized to be around people, to have better manners.
Yes, Anthony, is it possible to have the slides go one after the other, take it off the constant loop thing? Yeah. I feel like I'm sitting in front of an audience of art directors. And let's have a table lamp behind us. It's more cozy.
No, I really think just let it flow and we'll talk about it. There's some that will be beautiful to look at, but don't need anything
You're
explained.
very used to seeing these.
What?
You're very used to seeing these, but when I was looking through your website and online at different, various sources to introduce myself to your work, I was like, wait, what's this? And what's this? And I actually needed some time to kind of go through them. So if you'll indulge the audience a bit.
Tony Basil. I can't remember her name, but anyone who knows that, I'm 92 now, and I forget names, even of my best friends. So it's just so just shout it out, when I think. And there's Peter, and Dennis is a little behind us, and they're taking a smoke break.
Yeah. And that was a kind of a bit of a raucous shoot, wasn't it? Because it sounded like, especially because of Dennis Hopper, it sounded like there was a little bit of madcap mayhem going on.
Yes, it was unfortunate, and I remember putting some furniture against the door to my room and calling up to find out when the first flight out was.
Really? Oh my God. Yeah. That's not for the faint of heart. So, when you were little, did you imagine I'm going to be a photojournalist? I'm going to be a still photographer on movie sets. I'm going to meet famous people. Did you have any kind of?
I just thought at 15 or 14 or 13, I thought it'd be interesting to have a camera, a good camera, and work with it. I was an artist, and I thought it'd be nice to have, this was another visual medium. I didn't see it as journalism. I didn't begin to even understand it, something being journalism, until I got to Sarah Lawrence and went out to play baseball with some guys who were on the Harvard Crimson newspaper, and they began to inspire me. And I then I kind of got drawn into it that I might be able to have a career in this, or this might be interesting to pursue. But I didn't. And that was my first assignment by Sports Illustrated.
This
They just
particular
started.
photograph.
Yeah, it was, this was, no, I hardly got it. I was just getting sideline things, people you could still walk into a magazine and ask for the secretary for the art director's office and see an art director and say, I'm a beginning photographer and I would like to do some work for you. And I had a kind of interesting portfolio. It did get recognized. I did have Brodovich of Harper's Bazaar and who was it at Condé Nast Forever and Ever? Who was it at Condé Nast Forever and Ever?
Oh, Lieberman. Alex
Lieberman.
Lieberman.
Yeah, Brodovich published something across 2 pages that I had done out of my portfolio when I sent it on Portfolio Day, so I never met it. They'd call me into the office. And Lieberman also had laid out something that I had photographed. He thought it'd be interesting to their readers. So I was recognized by them. But anyway, things here, this was Time Life, and they just had no time for young women photographers, and they were an old, a boys' playground, a boys' network.
Yeah, I would imagine
Boys
that,
Club. But this, I did get it. There was a sympathetic art director, and they wanted some sort of a thing showing that they're on the newsstand, and they had real newsstands like that in those days.
Well, this is such an incredible time capsule of a moment and an epoch, and
it was a nothing assignment. It wasn't something that ran in the back, but I did get the 2 bubblegum blowers of 5 and 6 that were the children of some of the editors, and that was in the first of their issues, and I did end up doing some amazing work for them.
yeah.
There they are.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Sort of. Anthony put it in there because it was my first published thing in Sports Illustrated.
Ah,
Thought
but
you'd like to
for the
see that.
bubble gum
Bubble gum.
blowing
Bubble.
athletic
Yeah,
event.
yeah.
Yes.
We don't have to stay on. We don't have to stay on this one so long.
No, we don't.
We could hurry through these bad photographs.
Yeah.
And that's Yoko and John. She is trying to avoid a miscarriage, or rather, it's in process. She's trying to hold the pregnancy. And so they've set up in a hospital room. He has a sleeping bag, and he stayed there with her. And in those days, this is the late 50s, I think, or the 60s.
60s.
It was unheard of for an unmarried couple to remain overnight in the same room in a hospital, but John had managed. And he was not famous then, and he was getting extraordinarily bad publicity. However, they had been arrested by the police on smoking marijuana charges or carrying marijuana. And as a matter of fact, that was half the reason they were willing to let Betty Rollins and I in to do a story. And we did end up doing a wonderful story on them.
Well, this was a super famous spread in Look magazine. And I was looking at the photographs of John and Yoko and really wondering how clearly, by the time you were taking these photographs of them in the hospital, you had become very familiar with them, and they must have become very comfortable with you, because they do not have a look of "let me out of here" or "who is this woman in the room with me," which is kind of astonishing. How did you manage that?
Okay, when we first met, they seemed to be pulling away, and we couldn't quite get out of the Apple office, and it was kind of vague. And so I asked Betty Ross. I said, Betty, don't get upset, but let me ask John something. I said, John, Betty Rollins has arrived here. I work for Vogue besides doing this story, which we hope was for Vogue. And um, uh, she wants to go shopping on Carnaby Street and so on. And you look as though you're not too interested in doing photography today, that you have other things on your mind. Why don't we just split and pick it up again tomorrow and see if we can, the photographs take, and doing a story for Look takes the subject and the photographer to work together, and you just don't look in the mood, and we've got things we've got to get done. And he's looked at me very strangely, and then he said, just a second. He went over and whispered to Yoko, and he came back, he said, can we come along? So we went shopping.
Well, this is
And
so
that broke the ice, by stepping back from him and not being so anxious to, try to get him. I think they liked that. He sat down among the clothes racks while Yoko tried some things on.
Well, it's remarkable because there are a lot of photographs of them, and some of the most intimate I've ever seen, including the ones where they're naked in bed that were used as a kind of a peace protest. But the way that they look and the relaxation on Yoko's face and many of these photographs that you took are exceptional because she just doesn't do that. So she's done it more since she's gotten older, I think, and kind of relaxed into her.
Well, he was teaching her how to handle such a situation. There are some where he's teaching her how to suck in her cheeks to make them look more emphasized.
Wait, John told her that?
Yeah, John did that. And there's playful things that he did that would help relax her. So she'd be used, such as I discovered in one photograph of the two of them, I discovered that they were holding hands, and I look again, and there's a third hand. No, it's a foot. And it's John's foot that he had brought up to, kind of be amusing to. They were in these heavy fur coats where you would hardly notice. So he was always being a little playful, which was wonderful.
Yeah, well, the photos come off with this incredible playful intimacy.
And what I did is I said, the aim here is to get as many pages as we can in Look magazine, and I have no idea about all the things you do or don't do, and we've got to think up something that could be funny or just, here we are in this house. What can we do that will make for an original photograph? So what you say? So, well, why don't we start at the top of the house? So there's a bathtub. Went in the bathtub. We get down to the bedroom, and he says, what should we do here? And I said, well, get into bed. So I was the first to get them into bed.
Ah, excellent. Which is this?
The house that he and his wife had occupied, she had just come in with her mother and some workmen and pulled up the rugs, so there was a row of nails heads left just in front of the bed. Now, Betty, and the reason we got the story is Betty and Yoko had gone to Sarah Lawrence together, and of course I had gone to Sarah Lawrence a little earlier. So John would make up songs for us about Sarah Lawrence, which was wonderful. Play the guitar and make a tune up. It was a wonderful visit, but something happened between Yoko and Betty. Yoko was cleaning out the closet and making John a healthy creature by getting rid of all the sugar and all the sweets. And they offered some tea. We had some tea, and Betty asked if she could have a little sugar. There was some around. She passed it to Betty, and it fell on the floor, and the sugar spilt. And then Yoko got this pinched look on her face. And we couldn't get it off her face for a long time. And it upset Betty. And Betty and Yoko were upset by this little unsaid contretemps. And this is sitting in their house having tea, and that's me. I'm in my boots and my little, we had very short skirts then. And Yoko had made this lovely lunch for us. It really was just wonderful.
So who took this photograph, if that's you?
That's an assistant, somebody carrying my equipment.
Well, it looks amazingly cozy, and I just don't think of most photographs of them from that time looking that way. They seem staged and specific and whatnot.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes it's very hard to get things not staged, even if they're staged.
Oh, tell us more about that. Did you have tricks for doing that?
I never, it just took time. I guess it's just a question of which wore off first, their camera face or just, I don't know, it's just sometimes I wasn't successful at getting people to relax and be their real selves. So I don't know what the mystery or the what you do.
Well,
Sometimes I fumble a lot.
I would say actually that in most of your photographs, I am imagining that you somehow projected some kind of empathy or ease or real attention, so that people did relax. Because we were talking earlier, I'm sure you'll see it at some point, of a photograph that Susan did of Betty Friedan, whom I would see in Sag Harbor when we very first came out here, and she pretty much had a scowl most of the time. God bless her, but she had a lot to be mad about. But there's the way that you ended up photographing her was so different from most photographs that you see of her.
I know it often took a lot of time to, where we just have given up, and then suddenly I see something that just looks like them in their better moments. So,
Well, it's next. Oh, there she is in the middle. That's Betty
that's
Friedan
the
in the
best
middle.
one of her, yeah.
Oh, and she right. Oh, it's all she. I'm sorry, I'm looking at it at an extreme angle. Yeah.
Yeah. And Paul Davis took the one that we both liked, the black and white one, and made a drawing based on it. And that's lovely too. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's a beauty. But it's this, there's a kind of warmth, there's a kind of real, there's a kind of woman to woman, dare I say, maybe it has something to do with that. And speaking of, how did you feel with all these men giving you the women's jobs?
Well, there were two things. Not until years later, when I did the women's book, that came out of looking through my archive and realizing that I had this amazing collection of these working women or women who did something contributed to the world, either in art or whatever. Art, I did lawyers, money people, doctors. And the women's jobs that I got were somewhat either a woman editor or they were somewhat secondary to the primary news that was going on. So it was, I didn't realize that I was being treated like a second-class citizen and mainly getting jobs on women. Now, at People magazine, there was a woman editor who gave me some very tough jobs doing men who were in trouble.
Do you think that's the difference right there?
Well, right there, that woman, that was, she's a photographer now, Miller, Maddie Miller, was assigning people that she thought would be empathetic to certain people. So she didn't think about the sex or of the photographer. She just thought who would be good at it. And so this was just fun. That was done for Ms. Magazine with all those buttons with one of my favorite models who was not a famous model, but she was fun to work with. And that's Barbara Chase Rabot, a sculptor. And she was the first one to reveal the story of Sally Hemings' prodigy. And she wrote a book on Sally Hemings before there was DNA testing, talking about the Jefferson family. And we had a pretty rough, we went down to, this was for people, we went to Monticello, which is behind her, and I thought we were going to be skinned
How so?
because there had been a staircase, and we went down to try to get them to open this door that went into Jefferson's study, and Barbara had found that there was a bricked up opening in the ceiling of the main house that led to a balcony that went across and came down on a staircase into a closet in Jefferson's study where he often slept. And that's how Sally and Jefferson would get together without the rest of the household knowing about it. Of course,
Wow.
they all knew. But in any event, she's a very famous sculptor. Philadelphia Museum of Art gave her a show, and we went through this adventure. They got a guard the second time we went through, and we went waiting for them to open that closet door to photograph the staircase that was so important in revealing how Jefferson and Sally got together, and the staircase was gone.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
Gone. So we went through again a second time, and this time I tried to carefully get the empty hole, with a flash or something so we could see that it was empty. And this time they had a guard there who took us by the arms and took us down to their main office building where they showed us I didn't know what they were going to do with us, and they showed us some Kodachromes of what the staircase looked like, and they claimed that they took it out because it was not of the period.
Oh my
But
God.
Kodak stamped their things with a date that it was developed, and the little cardboard box around the Kodachrome, and the date was that it went to be developed was the day after this article had appeared in a local paper, which explained how what she had in the book that was just coming out, of how that there was this evidence that there was an easy way for them to be having an affair, and then all the children and so on. So I realized that they must have been in a rage to move so fast.
Yeah.
Because the staircase was gone. The next day, the staircase was gone.
Wow. So you were right at the heart of something. That's, yeah.
So, but we still are in touch. She's very active, and she's won many awards for her books and for her sculpture. Oh, that's Andy Warhol at the factory. Yeah. And I think that's Edie.
So did
The
you
big
hang?
thing with
Did
the-
you hang out at the factory?
No,
too?
I think I was only there
Don't
twice.
you feel like we're having like historical whiplash, but in the best way? It's like so fascinating. So so you didn't hang out with the Warhol crowd?
Well, I knew people who were involved. I sometimes met him or sometimes was at a same party, but I really was not hanging out with them. No, just a little view.
And this is Dennis Hopper.
Dennis is looking for a location, objects, and so on. He's trying to be a street photographer, and he was. He was a very good photographer, brilliant.
Did you give him tips?
What?
Did you give him tips?
He didn't like. I know he was interested in me because I helped them get their storyboard out and get their first payment so they could get to New Orleans. And so the evening that I helped them tell the story into a tape machine so that he could take it to the producer, whose name is just escaping me, we worked on this. I would ask him a question, and they would start to talk. I would ask him another question, and we got the storyboard done. There had been storyboards done for them by Terry Southern and others, but they were so nitpicky, and I had worked on movies. I'd worked in Africa, and I worked on other movies. I said, the storyboard is not that important. You don't have to, it doesn't commit you to the scene. It could even change. It gives you an idea of a place and what might go on. It just get it done in the simplest form and pick up the money and get going. And they listened to me, and Peter and he sat down, and I said, got a tape recorder, got the tape recorder out, and they got it done. They liked it, but we didn't have a secretary to transcribe it and bring it up there. I said, don't bother. It sounds wonderful. Just take it up there, and you'll come back with the money. Dennis, why don't you go? I sort of herded them around as if they were little. I was a sheepdog, and they were little sheep. And they did that, and Peter and I stayed and waited, came back, he had a check.
Wow.
And they got started. So, but Dennis saw me as this person that he might lean on to be soothing or to get things done or something. I was there for Look magazine. It was an amazing thing for me to get an assignment to go across the country. And this was my night job or second job. Had an introduction to come and see Dennis's art collection because I had an interest in art. And it turned out that I was helping them to get their movie started. So he saw me as this good luck charm, I think. Mm-hmm. And then that night, he's taking me home. The car go down a hill, car stops, we're in this sort of chain link area, and he starts making a pass at me, and I had an interest, a different interest in New York, and I didn't want this, so I said, okay, Dennis, that's very flattering, but, let's go home. Just take me home. And so he got angry, and he said, get out of the car. So I got out of the truck, start walking, and then he'd like angry, take it off, and then he backs up and he says, get in, I'll take you home, but do you know where you are? And I said, no, I have no idea. He says, you're in the toughest part of Los Angeles.
Well,
wasn't that nice to know? So.
Yeah, that's a hell of a date.
So
didn't know you were
sometimes, so then he sees me on location with the two cameras, and he didn't like that. Because he's a very good photographer. I guess he thought he could be the actor, the director, and take the still shots too. And it turned out his still shots are absolutely wonderful. He had a big exhibition before he died.
Yeah.
So it just was his character was a little weird.
Well, he may have seen you as like a moment of calm in the hurricane that he was always producing. It sounds like
Yeah.
This is M.O. And Peter Fonda, did you get to know him?
Oh, he was adorable. So sweet and nice and empathetic. There's a picture of him petting a little stray dog that is so typical of him. I felt it was projection where he saw himself as this pathetic poor dog that needed soothing. Mm-hmm. See, there it is. I really love that.
Yeah. And Karen Black? Did you get to know her?
I didn't get to know her. I didn't stay that long.
She always seemed really mysterious to me.
Yeah. Tony Bays, they both were wonderful women. Mm-hmm. They cast their friends in wonderful women.
But it was a buddy movie, let's face it. It was a buddy movie. It wasn't really.
Yeah, it was guys.
There was very little room for them.
It was a road movie, like Bing Crosby and whoever.
Mm-hmm. It was just like Bing Crosby. Give the next slide, please.
I love this series. This is David Hockney with one of his big pieces in Los Angeles, and I love that he looks like he's in his own picture.
Yeah, it's a very good photograph. Did you photograph a lot of artists generally?
A few. Oh, this Hockney scene was such fun because he was doing so much with pools. He was so much. Look, one red sneaker, one green sneaker. Mm-hmm. There's two of his friends all of them looking like they're in the picture. I really had such fun with this.
And how did you happen to photograph him? Was it an
Well,
assignment or was it just
Vogue
friendship?
had sent me out there to do something on Los Angeles. They were going to do a California issue. Now, not all of Los Angeles fell in love with. Not all of Los Angeles fell in love with me. No, they were very cooperative. They were wonderful. So I did about 3 or 4 artists, and I got to know people. And this is George Siegel, who did castings of people. This is in his Marlborough Gallery. George Siegel and his wife. And that's Gloria Vanderbilt. She was an artist. Her work is very interesting. And that's in a big glass and steel building, where a lot of celebrities lived near the UN. And she had what had been some maids' rooms there, were her studio down a few floors from her apartment. And she worked a lot on her paintings. She was very interesting. And of course, people in the public eye understand that if they cooperate with whoever's interviewing them or photographing them, they're going to get a better story on them. So it's a good category. That was on Pollock. That's the floor at Jackson Pollock's house.
Right.
Yeah, and that's Larry Rivers.
That's a very pensive looking Larry Rivers. It's interesting.
Yeah, that's when he was looking at Japanese art.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Bartlett, Joan Bartlett.
Jennifer Bartlett.
Jennifer Bartlett, yes. Yeah. I actually Larry was a friend, but I actually had hired them for a party.
And how was it?
They were great.
And was it a really wild party?
They were busy. No, well, it was, I don't know, maybe some of you were at the party. And when that's,
Jane Freilich.
yeah. Jane Friedan. Yeah, and that's Martha Stewart, a little distorted at the top.
Oh, your Martha Stewart photographs really amazed me. I had no idea she looked like that then, and then I
She had a
what?
catering business then in Connecticut.
Ah.
Yeah.
So this is before she was in
Very
East Hampton.
before she was very famous. It
And
was another one of those, a woman assignments, woman on woman.
Well, she was extraordinarily accomplished. Was there a sense when you met her that she had her eye on a big sort of Martha
No,
Stewart
I think
emporium?
as opportunity presented itself, she
Took it.
did it and then expanded on it. And she was amazing. And she's always been wonderful and friendly. And I love catching her out here. And we nod at each other. And, we had our little time together. It was fun. She made it fun. Well, maybe I asked her to do things. And that's James Brown. And that was a very all-guy picture, sort of army thing in Jamaica. And I figured I didn't think it was going to be a very successful movie. It was a movie assignment.
Is this High Wind in Jamaica? Was the
But
name of it?
I knew what was needed and what would go over and what would get published would be a hunk shot. And it took me a very long time to get his shirt off.
Yes. And thank you for your service.
And that's one of my first most successful photographs. That was for Sports Illustrated. I convinced them to have me go to a Harvard-Yale game, and I sort of wandered up and down and through the stands trying to catch the spirit of it all. And I think I did. And then that started my movie-taking career, because the guy here has a cigar in his mouth, and some PR firm that called themselves the Cigar Institute would send $100 to any photographer who took a picture that got published of somebody around a cigar, smoking a cigar, anything with a cigar. So this $100 check came in. That seemed so generous and wonderful. I sent them a blow up about that, a blow up of the two figures there, sort of, or maybe the three. And they loved it, and it hung above the president's desk in this thing. Then his underling went, someone named Saul, I don't remember Saul's last name, he went on to Paramount. Howard Hawks came along and said he wanted someone from each activity that a person in his films might be in on the set to get a sense of what they do. And so this chance to go to Africa, to go with Howard Hawks and John Wayne to Africa on animal catching. I was in Africa 2 weeks after that. This introduced me, or after that, I was recommended for that.
That's a crazy, crazy progression of events. I mean, to go from a cigar to that. So
and after that, other publicists began to hire me.
Mm-hmm.
But all was not easy on the set. The star had, who was so pretty, Italian. No. Anyway, her boyfriend was a Paris Match photographer. He was out there. The director's girlfriend name was Chance, and Chance did not. They tried to keep me off scenes. I had poo-pooed my father, who said, that's Hollywood. I'd get advance money and a round-trip ticket, and I did that. That was a story in itself, as performers like to be paid in cash. And I asked for a few weeks or a month payment ahead. And I went down with a slip to some office Paramount's office was in Times Square. And Times Square was very dangerous at that days. That was the early 60s, late 50s. And passed them a chit. I thought I'd get a check. They gave me a bundle of money to walk out with.
Wow.
And it was the highest paid. I didn't do advertising at that time. And it was one of the highest paid jobs I had at the time. So then I had a fight to get on a set, on an action scene. So I did scenes around the actors, got them published.
Wow.
Oh, that's Bono. Bono and his wife at a lunch in Ireland. And that's Ralph Lauren. I think I was assigned by, I don't remember, it was one of the magazines, Look, I think.
Did you get to know him and his family? Because
a little bit.
It seems like
they were very nice. And I don't think he liked exposing his children to publicity and being, written about. I think he tried to keep that out of his work at the time, because I'm called on now for these children pictures of this period, like every Mother's Day, and I hope it continues as they send a nice check. But they put it in ad, Ralph and his family wishing everyone a happy Mother's Day. So I got to know them a little bit, and I knew the people they rented this house from in East Hampton, which were the Tysons on their farm. And that's Nora Ephron. I love that picture.
Oh, that's a wonderful picture.
And that's, come on, we know who that is. Jan von Furstenberg, her first husband, right, right. Yeah, she saw a shirt that she liked, and she's quickly whipped off hers and put that on. This was in a shop. There they were in matching shirts.
And then walked out with it, or yeah.
Well, she paid for it. And this is all these editors. I think you're in this. Yeah, can you name them? Wilfred Sheed. And all of these were, which editor?
Alice Mayhew, they're saying? Yeah. Wow.
And then the owner of the American Hotel is on the left,
That's Ted Conklin.
Ted
Yeah.
Conklin. And then that young woman over there, I think she was having an affair with the very famous choreographer. Well, anyway, they all were important people around here.
I can't
Oh,
quite
that is
see
a
who it is.
California art. Oh no, that is the famous architect Gehry,
Oh, it's Frank
Frank
Gehry.
Gehry,
Wow.
and that's his house behind Chain Link in Los Angeles, and that's his child, and yeah, and that's his. That's sort of an outer shell around a house, and that's George Plimpton and his children. Yeah, Mary Wells Lawrence, who was very first highest paid person in, not just woman, but person in advertising, who Wells Rich and Green, Mary Wells. And I caught them by accident. That's Gregory Peck in some movie or another. What? Anthony, what movie is it? Mirage.
Oh, Mirage, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He was very grumpy.
He still is very grumpy, I think.
She was wonderful. That's the designer. Oh, and those beautiful drawings.
Oh, Betsy Johnson.
Betsy Johnson, just a joy to work with, creative, thoughtful, wearing crazy clothes. In fact, in the book, I quickly got into one of her dresses. It was great, and so did her bookkeeper, and I took a picture of the two of us as the models in a mirror with her in the same dress. I don't know if we have that picture. She was just a joy. Yeah. And she's still so perky and stylish and witty. Oh, I took that's for, in Ireland, it seemed to be that was the future with the computer up on her face. And it reminded me of a particular Renaissance artist who always had the subjects overflame and glowing from
Oh,
the
yeah. Fantin Latour,
yeah.
right? Fantin Latour, yeah.
Yeah. So I like that. Monica Vitti, she was so much, if she could only act the way she looked ordinarily, she had such an expressive face and such a great smile, and she liked my work so much, she asked for me to do a session with her. And as soon as we did a proper session, I couldn't get anything that had the spirit of things I just caught when she wasn't aware.
But you have
Like this, she wasn't aware. She was waiting and listening to the director, but she had a very complex life at that time. She had the director she lived with staying in her dressing room, and then she had another director who was directing her in this movie, Modesty Blaise, I think it was
Modesty
called.
Blaise. Yeah. Do you know about this movie? It's kind of a crazy romp, right? I don't really know that much about it.
It's a kind of it was a comic book character.
Yeah.
A sophisticated comic book character.
A little in the mold of Barbarella, but without the space.
It was always hard to get good pictures on a set, or to finally get to work with the star. There was a struggle, and you had to play politics and get somebody. It was always better if you could have had a big introduction that you're a super duper photographer, and work with her. You'll see how wonderful, how much space she'll get you. And there's Jane Fonda and Donald Sutherland. They were so adorable.
I think we should open it up for questions at this point.
Yes.
We're just talking our butts off.
We'll just let it flash on. Any questions?
Yeah, what have you been thinking about all this time? Go ahead, please. Portraiture as what? Yes.
I have to repeat the question for me.
I think, can you please give her, she needs a mic, please, she needs a mic, please, so that we can hear her a little bit better. Thank you.
It's my hearing. It's not so good.
Hi. Hello. Sorry.
Maybe not the danger mic. Maybe we could use a peaceful mic.
I could just talk quieter.
Okay.
It seems to me that you approach portraiture almost as reportage, and I just wondered if you make a distinction between your more staged photographs, if there are some that feel that way to you, versus those that feel more candid.
Yes,
No, you're not.
am I on?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I try to create a candid situation out of a canned one. Yeah. But you notice that has the Holy Bible and his new book next to him. That was Joe Heller. He had just published a new book. Yeah, I try to be reportage about it. I really don't do a portrait session. And then usually when you just about packing up the camera, if I have been allowed only a little bit of time, then something good happens. And I turn around and take pictures. And I try to make the lighting situation and everything very simple.
Well, not in, of course, in this photograph, because I'm just about to say something that won't be true about this one, but in most of the work that I've seen of yours, and I just saw a ton of it, like going through all sorts of sources, there's a moment of like relaxation that you seem to be able to wait for, where people reveal their intelligence, their concerns. I mean, you were talking about just kind of laying in wait and being patient until someone drops their photo face or their photo guard. But nonetheless, just doing that and then actually getting a great photo are two different things. So
That's Teddy Kennedy with.
talk into the mic.
That one is Teddy Kennedy.
No, you turned it off. Okay, you're good. You're good.
That's Teddy Kennedy with a niece of, I think it was Ethel, one of the other Kennedys. Yeah. No, it is. It's an adopted child. Who is it? Yeah, I think so. That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, it was the same bunch all together for an evening. Yeah. But we have funnier ones than that.
Next slide, please.
It's at the end?
I don't think so.
Oh, that's Peter Fonda. Not Peter Fonda, Peter Duchin. The famous, there was a story about him.
Oh, my.
And it's such that Rolls Royce is just so amazing. And the society band leader. And he did get people onto the dance floor and to enjoy dancing. Yeah.
April, may I ask a question?
It was the
Yes,
Palm
of
Beach
course.
story.
Kristen would like to ask something.
So we just finished, not to wear my church employee hat, but we just finished the humor exhibition, and you're very humorous. And we're going into the Pushpin Studios, or yes, no, wow, the Pushpin Studios Revolution. And when we first spoke, you said you knew all of the people of the Pushpin Studios. And you shared with me a brilliant story about working, when they were working with you and interviewing about your work with Dr. Feelgood.
Oh,
And I was wondering if if you wouldn't mind sharing with everyone that story.
Okay, so is this on?
Yes.
Yeah. So someone was telling me about modern medicine and how it brings out there are now things that can make your best brain, your everyday brain, or something it was vitamin shots that could be given, and certain doctors were giving them to the brightest and the best of New York, and they were in New York, and this young man was encouraging me to come with him and try it out. So I was working for New York Magazine a lot then, and I wanted to do some writing too, and so we arranged that I would be an investigative reporter, and I would write and photograph, or photograph if I could, but it turned out to be an investigative effort on my part that took a long time. So I guess I was beginning to be addicted to the vitamins, but
Excuse me, is vitamin a euphemism for something?
well, it's a little bit of a euphemism. Yeah, I guess there was
Yeah.
some vitamins in it, and it was. But I knew the medical examiner of New York, and the special way. My mother was very involved with the politics of New York, and I got to know many people in different positions, like the medical examiner, so on. And so I mentioned all this. I said, "What do you think about this?" You're just in time. We finally figured out how to find out how to analyze what from blood, what is in the blood that might produce such a thing. For instance, amphetamine would be such a thing. I said, "Oh," and I said, "Well, would you help me with this story? Because I'll find out what's in it and whether it's safe." And so I got the cooperation of the medical examiner of New York and his lab and the new discovery. And I'd rush over there, and I'd get one of these shots that made me feel oh so good and so bright. And I'd rush over there, and they'd analyze my urine. I said, "Oh, yes, that's amphetamine." That's not just B vitamin, that's amphetamine. And be careful now. So I had this incredible story. And so it was difficult for me to write. I think I got a movie job that I had to go do in between in England, and then I got back to it, and it took me a while. And so I did this expose. And instead of me being the photographer on the story, I wrote it. It was kind of light-hearted, but not such a light-hearted subject. And I wrote it. I did the investigation. I dealt with people trying to stop it from being printed. And there was a lot of drama involved. And so it appeared, and Walter Bernard, who was here, it has the exhibit upstairs, decided to assign to illustrate this story. So he hired Dwayne Michaels to photograph me going through the effort of the whole process of going to this doctor, hearing his story. He's very sympathetic, and he's going to help me to be my better self. And he did this series where I'm finally having a high, an amphetamine high. So I won't explain how we did it, but it was cleverly done. It was a wonderful group of pictures, which I think you'll see upstairs.
Not
at
those
that show.
pictures, actually, because we don't have Dwayne Michaels included, but the expose that you did was really notorious and impactful. And was there a particular doctor who was nicknamed Dr. Feelgood, or how
There
was
were
this?
about 3 that were famous, and there was a particular one that reached into the White House. And when John F. Kennedy was brought to this wonderful doctor, by Alan J. Lerner, who relied on him to bring out his his lyrics. John F. Kennedy said, "It may be horse piss, but it feels great."
I mean, it's really shocking because that and things like Valley of the Dolls, et cetera, those kinds of
New York.
New York magazine.
Yeah, and I can only give praise to Clay Felker for being so supportive of all of us who brought him ideas, and he really, I miss him.
Yeah. Well, you've seen New York change on the ground as much as anyone I can think of, because from the mid-century to now, I mean, there's been like such an enormous change in the city itself. The vibrancy of the Pushpin Studios artists and Walter and his work with Milton Glaser, in magazine publishing was just enormous. I mean, just a huge change, and specifically inspired the city, I think, to have a better kind of optimism look at its own self, because in the 70s, obviously, in the 60s, it was extremely dangerous. In the 70s, it wasn't much better. And then it started to kind of come out of that. And it's exposés like the one that you were involved in and the kind of publishing that happened that helped to, I think, rebalance people's sense of what the city offered. It was very important at that time.
So what do you think is happening? I miss the magazines very much, and I feel that the YouTube doesn't do it. I mean, it just becomes more just, maybe I'm not watching it enough, but I just like print.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't seem to have the picture magazines anymore, or the picture stories. Yeah.
Not in the same way. Question, Janoy?
Hello. What do you prefer shooting with, film or digital?
You just had to press the button. I think now it is.
Oh, okay, I'll try this. Hello. I guess I don't look at the print or as fine art. I really think the image is the thing, and if you can get any piece of imagery which has some spontaneity or truth or beauty or mood to it, I love it, and I find it very interesting, and I like something quick, and I love the digital. I just think it makes life so much easier. I mean, I used to carry around tons of equipment and go with if you're doing an art photography thing where you care about that, then there's nothing like print. But I just think that digital is wonderful.
How did you become so familiar? Was it through magazine publishing that you became friendly with or got to know or perhaps worked with some of the Pushpin Studios principals?
It's through the magazines, through the work, and they were wonderful. There's so many people here tonight there are a number of people here tonight who know, like Walter, and certainly, there are just so many that have worked with the magazines. Okay. What? I love the color of Kodachrome, the intensity, but that was rated at 25 ASA, and we're in the northern hemisphere, with dark days and dark nights. It was very hard to work with. I'd push it as far as I could. I worked with Tri-X a lot because that was the fastest. I worked with the fastest film I could get. I sometimes cared about the detail that you could get, but that wasn't as important to me as trying to just get the shot. So I mostly worked with Tri-X, and I didn't go with the fastest color because it was too blue or too green, but I worked as much as I could, and I pushed film as much as I could. I often worked with 1,000 or 1,200 or 1,600 ASA just so I could get something, like something with Andy Warhol in the factory. It was dark, you know, but I used 35 millimeter, and when I bought a Hasselblad, whatever I do seemed to be lost in that. It was too sharp. And I loved the silvery sparkle, or even that, the way the light split up on things. So that there is some aesthetic choice in that I liked. And I felt that these were, look how big that is. I felt that's sharp enough. You know, all paintings aren't. Rembrandt wasn't as sharp as Rubens. You know, the sharpness issue has something to do with the period of time you're in, and certainly the modernists and the Matisse and so on. Like I did food more like Matisse than like some Renaissance painter. I try to light it so that it just, you love the color of the apricot. So, yeah. And I loved that one. She was a young choreographer at Sarah Lawrence. And it's just a nice, thoughtful picture. It's kind of blurry, but it catches a mood. So.
Anyone else?
Oh, Phyllis, yes. There's a microphone. It's so great. This was a. Oh. We did these brochures for Wamsutta Mills for their buyers at all the stores across the country, and we did it for about 10 years. Where a writer, Phyllis, Steve, and I'd be drawn in, and we'd think up these themes and go and please explain it.
Well,
It's kind of wonderful.
Those were the days when we had really designer sheets, a lot of creativity, and we looked at this pattern one market weekend. There were like Schmata, there were the boldest, ugliest patterns. And my friend said, Phyllis, it won't be your fault, you know, because design. But I said, let's go to Mexico. These will look good. And Susan had ideas like, let's put a bed down a rainforest. Let's take a bed with patterned up a pyramid. We'll give them a Playboy magazine, and they'll look the other way. We closed Tasco, the city, and had beds paraded up there. And we went to Chapultepec Park to launch the sheets. Each matador was going to present a sheet across the whole center spread. I have the book with me. I'll show you later. And we went early in the morning when they were practicing, and they said, "Oh, we can't do that. We're matadors. We can't take a sheet." And I turned to the translator and Susan, and so I said, "Well, let's just hire people, right? We'll get costumes, and we'll just like make it happen." And they heard it, and they said, "Oh, nobody can be like us." We will do it. And so anyway, my question, because that was a long time ago, right, Susan?
Yeah.
So
we got so excited by it. I asked them if I could, fight a bull. they found a little bull.
sometime I want to write a book, and the book is
one
called.
of the matadors helped me with the sheet.
That's wonderful.
So I got to fight a bull.
Sometime I want to write a book, Up Many a Driveway with Susan Wood. Because we have been up many a driveway. My question actually is, I'm interested in today. I'm interested in your going forward, your creative soul. I'm very interested in what interests you today to photograph. What subject or what mood or what what's on your mind? What would you like to do, Susan?
Well, okay, so I'm doing, I never did really street photography, so I'm doing some street photography on the buses of New York because I'm riding buses around. And because I think the street photography is mostly, it's that we've seen in the past have been sad, underprivileged, or weird people. And on the buses, whatever level, we have school kids, we have everybody rides the buses. The whole middle class rides the buses. And so I've been photographing that. I think that's sort of fun. And I've been photographing my friends and what we're doing, just pulling it out and taking pictures, because I think I know some wonderful people, and they're fun to see. And it is very hard to, as we get older, we do not become more beautiful, so it's a little harder. But I've been photographing my friends and just doing like reportage, not studio settings. So I love the phone camera. It's on me. It has close up, which I love, and it has big distance and so on. And it takes wonderful pictures. I have not seen anything blown up yet, but I hear that they might blow up very well. Does anyone know about that? Yeah. Do they blow up well?
I think that there's I think AI is actually stepping into this problem, whether we like it or not, which could give you a pretty amazing extra interpolation of pixels when they're needed to actually blow up an image, which would be interesting. And of course, also the other thing, you've mentioned the Northern Hemisphere problem and having to get fast film that would actually capture less light than if we were near the equator. And of course, iPhones have done an incredible job in adding light to dark pictures. So that would be my answer, unless someone really, really knows who's working for digital photography. But I wanted to ask you, what advice would you give to young photographers today?
I would say photograph your friends and try to catch their character and what they do, and what you and your friends are interested in, how you live, what your apartments look like, what your unmade bedroom looks like. Just record that or anything that seems to show something of this period. I think we are recording history, and that's what you should do. And I think to want to be, quote unquote, a fashion photographer or a still life photographer or war, I think you should just do some intimate things among your peers. And okay, go after these other things or whatever interests you. Is that enough?
Yes, it's really fantastic. Yes, please. Have you done self-portraits? I'm trying to imagine how someone would do a self-portrait of oneself on a sailboat, but okay, this is you?
In my youth. That's and that was a dress that was left over from a shoot, and I think I was meeting Jimmy Brown and his girlfriend for some reason, and I seemed to see the plaza, the Bergdorf Goodman behind me. They saw I'm at 59th Street. Yeah, Yeah, so that was me at a younger time. But I think I was in my, I think I was late 20s. Late 20s, I think. Yeah. But no, I haven't taken, it's very hard to do a self-portrait. Forget it. Thank you for mentioning my sailing.